Somebody name me a hip flexor. Rectus femoris. So rectus meaning straight, like erect. Femur femoris. So that's a way to remember it, rectus femoris. And what's the weird one that runs? You know it, but what's the weird one that runs from your back here? Psoas. See, repeat after me. Psoas. Psoas. It's weird, right? It's weird. And then, yeah, and then there's the long one, sartorius. You don't really need to know the name. So what are all, stand up for a sec, what are all of the actions that these do? Flexion. They do flexion. They don't do extension, they do flexion. Right? This is the action. Or this is the action. Right? Or this is the action. Right? Or if I'm lying on my back and this one's to come down, this is working to hold this leg up, is it not? Right? Eccentric, right. So if I'm lowering this leg down and this is resisting gravity, is this shortening or is it lengthening? Is it working? What kind of contraction is that called? Anybody remember?
Lengthening.
Yeah, lengthening and working. It's that one. Actually, honestly, as long as you have the concept, I don't care. I don't care. This is called concentric. This is called eccentric when it's lengthening and working at the same time. What about the muscles on the back here? What's the action that they do? Gluteus maximus and what's the long ones? Hamstrings. Right? And what's the action that they do? Show me in your body. Do it. Engage your hamstrings. Yes. And then engage them again. Yes. Right? You can feel it, right? Hamstring curl. Remember those little machines? Oh. Oh, okay, good. And then we have these guys on the inner thighs. What's this group of muscles called? Adductors, yes. And what kind of poses are they particularly useful for in yoga?
Eagle.
Eagle, squeezing your legs together. What else?
Chair.
Chair, squeezing your legs together. Fantastic. Right, in any kind of lunge pose where we tend not to be stable, they hug us in. Okay, what about these poses or these muscles? What's this group called? Abductors, right? And where do they show up in yoga practice? Besides, we like to stretch them. Yes. yeah, if you take your leg out to the side, they're working. Just like they would be working in half moon, right? To lift this leg up. But where else do we see them? Stability.
On the stand sporting leg.
Yeah, so when we're balancing, and you have to pull this hip in and keep it from popping out, that's when those guys are working to help you in balancing poses. What's the name of the muscle that runs from here to here, helps to externally rotate your leg, but sometimes gets squishy with the sciatic nerve? Piriformis. Piriformis. That's probably the only one of those that's the only one of those that you'd need to know. So an interesting thing about the piriformis, which Lucky and I were chatting about wherever she went to yesterday, is that, okay, so you know how we do all of these guys? We do this, and we're stretching the outer hip. What position is my leg in?
Rotated.
It's rotating, is it not? Come down onto your backs, everybody. Come in to thread the needle. Okay, the lifted leg, look at it. What position is it in anatomically? It's in flexion and something else. It's an external rotation. Can you see that? It's externally rotated. Can you guys see that? So so external rotation works your outer hip. So why the heck is it stretching? Anybody want to take a guess? Did your mind just bend? Can you take that in for a sec? Your leg is in the action of external rotation, which should mean that your external rotators are working, and yet you feel them stretching. Do you recognize this as a conundrum? Conundrum. Okay, come on up. Okay, here's the thing about these external rotators, is that when I'm in Warrior 2, and I'm doing this and I'm pressing this open, these guys are working, they're squeezing, they're working, they're rotating, they're rotating, they're rotating. But as soon as I come forward, as soon as I bring my pelvis forward into flexion, like sit up here for a sec, bring your thigh, your shin into external rotation. This is, do you guys see that this is external rotation? Not so much gravity, but it's because as I come forward, these wrap to here, as I come forward, as I flex my leg more, this action of pulling and externally rotating actually starts to stretch. So when I'm up, kind of I'd say beyond 90 degrees or something like that, I don't know exactly, then this would be working. But as soon as I come forward, it's because the position of my pelvis has changed. And I can show you better on a skeleton, but all of a sudden, that thing that's working, because the leg is coming forward, starts to stretch instead. So when you come forward into this pose, you start to feel your butt stretch. Try it. Yeah, you guys feel it?
Yeah, right into the glutes max.
Right in, well, yeah, in the outer hip rotators. And then you come up, and then you're like, oh, I don't feel it stretching anymore. So I just wanted to point that out now, because that confused me for years. I was like, why? I'm in external rotation. That should mean that these are contracting. Why do I feel a stretch? And it's because when we hinge the pelvis forward, when we close this front gap, it changes how those muscles are connected, and they start to get longer. Starts to stretch them out. So that's why your glutes are working here, but they're stretching. They're working here, actually, but then as soon as you do this, they start to stretch. That's the conundrum of those. And if that melted your brain, do not worry about it. It's just something.
Still under load, like the muscles are still loaded, like they're.
But gravity's pushing you into it. You're not working.
No.
Your body weight is sinking you into that pose. Yeah, I mean, and you know, in yoga, it's like everything's working and stretching and stretching, and you can lengthen and work. So. All right, are we good?